Howdy. Rain World has a lot of regions, and I have a lot of opinions. Naturally, this kind of content comes out of those two things existing simultaneously. This video is going to be a Rain World region tier list, like I said I was going to do almost 2/3 of a year ago. Now before we start, a disclaimer. These opinions come from the view of someone who has played this game for quite a while and under a lot of different circumstances. So things like first experience and visual splendor might end up being a little bit lost in the rankings. Additionally, all these rankings are based off of the experience of these areas for the survivor, as that is my most played Slugcat and my favorite by far. Anyways, let's start out at F tier. Now that I've caught you off guard, do you like Minecraft? Do you want a new Minecraft server to dump all your damn time into? I see I may or may not be turning some heads. But, for those of you that aren't interested, what if that Minecraft server had custom biomes, loot, weapons, boss fights, soundtracks, arenas, and fully functional fucking dungeons? I'm not talking these dungeons with skeletons and zombies. I'm talking these dungeons with this fucking guy in them. If this interests you at all, Prometheum MC might be a server to dump your time into. This server is run by a very good friend of mine, and he asked me to make a sponsored segment on it. To be clear, I am not getting paid a cent to say this. I genuinely believe that the changes made here are incredible and worth your time to experience. He's really done some fantastic work, so if this interests you, give it a shot, join the community there, and give the server the attention it deserves. Tell him I sent you. Oh god, that was a pretty strong flashbang. Well, now we can properly get started at the very bottom of the tier list. Tier F. F tier has one region in it. Can you guess which one? It rhymes with Chive Rebels. Hey, it's me, the comedic personification of Video Cult. What if we made a region that was the largest in the game by a notable margin, and we made that area in our movement-focused survival platformer game have horrible janky movement, no challenge in finding food, and an incredibly confusing layout. And then, hear me out, we filled it only with Daddy Longlegs, the creature whose primary counterplay is precise evasive movement. But Das, 5 Pebbles is actually 4 regions. You can't just rank them all the same. Okay, I get you. I'll rank them separately. There we go. What? You didn't notice the change? That's because they're all F tier anyways. Nothing can possibly describe the hatred that I feel for the zero gravity mechanic. Being completely incapable of controlling yourself after you make a jump makes it so that you have to hope to the gods of Rain World jank that you jump off the platform in the right direction, or you might end up floating aimlessly through the abyss until you can spin your way back to a wall. And apparently, 5 Pebbles also coated the damn walls with butter, because sometimes you just slide off of them, and God forbid you accidentally breathe near a Daddy Longlegs, because those motherfuckers can move just fine in this region. And they will send your ass back to the start of the region, no mercy, so you have to crawl through the 20 incredibly slow to navigate rooms all over again. Now, there is one thing that I can give the region credit for, and it's the music and presentation. The guts of a working iterator is a sight to behold, especially when Random God starts to play and you get the incredibly atmospheric experience that is the general systems bus. Overall though, the kick-ass aesthetics aren't enough to stop this region from being a bloated, oversized, horrible-to-navigate mess that specifically discludes all the parts of Rain World that make it fun gameplay-wise. Thank God you can literally just go around it. Alright. Now that all the negativity's out, we've graduated from the worst tier, and we get to talk about the other areas, specifically D tier. So what region could possibly be the second worst in the game? What a conundrum. It's so hard to decide. If only we had a system to sort out and filter the worst of the areas. Some kind of filtration system. Yeah, it's filtration. Hey, do you like mazes? How about mazes where the pathways are a foot wide and you can't see halfway through your fucking face? And we take that incredibly dark maze and we fill it with a bunch of blind lizards that are completely invisible to you, almost, kinda, until they hear you. And then when they do hear you, you have no counterplay because there are no rocks, almost no spears, and because the entire area is made up of 1 foot wide fucking tunnels. I sure hope you know where you're going, or have a map so you could guess where you're going, because otherwise you're gonna have one hell of a fucking struggle. Also, did I mention that the area is required to get to the end of the game? Now, the biggest relief of this area is that it's only like 4 rooms long and takes max 10 minutes to get through if you know what you're doing. But if an area is only really credited for the fact that it can be easily speedrun, I don't think it's a particularly good area. Also, notably, if you get unlucky, you can just have 5 black lizards camp the tunnels you have to go through, forcing you to either wait or roll the dice to see if you can wiggle past them or survive enough bites. Next up, and third worst, Sky Islands. Now, I'll have to admit, I do like the way that Sky Islands looks. The orange appearance on the creatures make a really cool sunset-style aesthetic that you don't really see anywhere else. Just a shame that literally everything about the area is done better in another adjacent region. So what makes this area suck so much dick? Well, take a look at this guy. You see him? Well, good, because you will need him. Half the rooms in Sky Islands require this little filthy bastard, or a notably hard-to-achieve setup to get through. This isn't helped by the area having some of the most unforgiving creature spawns in the entire game. So, you will go through this very hard area completely unarmed against yellow lizards, centowings, and vultures. And let's not mention, the one thing that you are holding on to is a very cranky squid who can just kind of choose to go comatose and suddenly turn from an incredible mobility tool into complete dead fucking weight that will get you killed. Now, luckily, the entire left side of the map is completely not required. So you can just go around it. You never even have to touch the upper left side of the map if you don't want to. This is going to be a constant for most of the lower areas that suck. You can usually just avoid them entirely. Now the final area in D tier is farm arrays. I want to make the intro quick so I can vent about this area. This isn't like Sky Islands where it just sucks but you can avoid it. Well, you can avoid farm arrays, at least as Monk and Survivor. Farm arrays makes me mad because I want to love it. It is the starting area for the hard mode and locks off one of the main ways into the depth. The colors are cool, the architecture is cool, the music is alright. So, why does it suck so much? Well, you see, what do you get when you mix an over-reliance on AI with some of the blandest platforming in the entire game, and then litter the area with scavs, centipedes, and wormgrass? What you get is a hard area that's just not fun to go through. At its best, it's a fun little trek through the area to get to Sky Islands, Subterranean, or Outskirts, but at its worst, my god, at its worst, this area can devolve into getting locked out of half the game because of AI just deciding against your game experience. Scavs can decide to kill you at the several tolls around the area, even after you've given them a pearl. Reindeer can just not do their jobs. And vultures can choose to spawn non-stop at the numerous large open flat rooms that are just horizontal plains with minor platforming. You know that one room in Outskirts where the red lizard spawns in? Yeah, imagine that, but it's a whole region. And it's also filled with wormgrass. I hate farm arrays. It genuinely ruins Hunter for me. And I hate that because, damn it, Hunter can be really fun. But every run has to start with farm arrays. Alright. Moving up in the world. What could possibly be at the bottom of C tier? That's odd. Thought the video would move on. It's just black. Alright, I'll stop being funny at Shaded Citadel. Let me preface. Shaded Citadel is fine when you have the neuron light. But the only reason that you go through Shaded Citadel is to get to 5 Pebbles and Moon, which are the only places to get neuron flies. Glowstones also make this area tolerable, but even then, it's mostly just really visually bland. Most of the areas were designed with the idea of darkness in mind, and while it's impressive that they bothered to model it anyway, turning on the lights shows you just how boring it looks. However, a good thing to say about this region, its creature design is fucking wicked. The wolf and spitter spiders have some of the freakiest fucking movement that I've seen in a video game, and the smaller spiders really sell the fear of moving around in the pitch black dark. It does sell its vibe, that vibe being a horror area. The problem is that horror and difficulty usually don't mesh well without sacrificing the horror. Especially when, after the horror has faded, you're left staring at completely pitch black fucking rooms for the rest of the attempts until you finally get that one where the spiders decide to leave you alone. Oh, yo, we don't have to move that far up to get to the next spot. So what's next? Oh, this'll be quick. Memory Crypts is arguably just an offshoot of Citadel. The only reason that I'm counting it as separate is because I like it a little bit more, and I want to talk about it individually. Memory Crypts is one of the most visually striking areas in the game, and the lore only helps it. A place where the ancients stored their most important memories, lit only by distant flashes of iterator activity. So what keeps this area down if it's so cool and all? Well, let me describe to you the gameplay of Memory Crypts. Enter area. Go right. Hide in the hole from the crackbirds. Go right. Leave area. The entire area is a long stretch of rooms going to the right until you reach the leg. It's not particularly thrilling. Now, the gigabirds are pretty fun to deal with, but so little room for error usually encourages playing incredibly safe, which just makes for an area where 90% of the time that isn't spent walking is spent waiting. This placement serves as a nice measuring stick, as this area isn't offensive. It just hardly exists. It's a long pathway to the leg. The area could easily be top 5 if it had gameplay that boiled down to more than fucking Mario 1-1 with terror birds in it. Now, the final region of C tier is maybe a little bit arguable. Shoreline. Okay, it might not be a particularly searing take, but I think Shoreline is a thoroughly below average area. It's not awful, but it's just kind of an area that you go through without too much difficulty. If you know where to go, this area proves to be really boring. You just kind of go from point A to point B without too much difficulty. Every creature spawn is easily avoided, which leaves the main threat of the area being drowning, and another area does that significantly better. There are only like 2 to 3 actually threatening rooms in the entirety of Shoreline, because every other area has jetfish, which aren't even that reliable either, because they can knock items out of your hands, including other jetfish. This means that most of the area's challenge is entirely dependent on RNG, because if you do get stranded, you're easy prey for leviathans, salamanders, and vultures. The main positives of the area are that even if it is pretty boring, it's at least really nice to look at. The greenish saltwater vibe is palpable, and Moon is a fantastic part of the region that gives it some nice character, with a very nice character at the end of it. Anyways, we're moving up another tier. B tier. We're nearing the big leagues now. What could possibly be at the bottom of B tier? We've been talking for so long about walking simulators with little to no actual threat level. What could possibly be next? Definitely not an area that fits its fucking depths. Easily the most palpable of that category. So what separates depths that makes it better than, say, Shoreline or Memory Crypts? Well, one word. Yeah, Depth just has absolutely fucking immaculate vibes. This is mostly helped by the music being fantastic, the environment being perfectly nauseating and weird, and the presence of the downright eldritch guardians, and, of course, the entire ending sequence of the game. The whole area serves as a really weird and arguably perfect ending to the game. If you ignore that, though, it's literally just some pretty basic parkour that can be entirely skipped with one spear, and then an incredibly slow walk through some yellow caves until you get to the ending, which is also just holding one button for several minutes straight. Not the most thrilling gameplay, but the experience alone places it this high at least. Moving on, the leg. This area is short as shit, so let's make this section short as shit. This little prelude to the Underhang may be just that, but it's at least unique enough that I want to talk about it in its own little section. The creature spawns feel deliberate, and that allows for a more uniform and scripted challenge. This is the only region in the entire game that uses Daddy Longlegs well. The sense of verticality makes for some of the most fun platforming in the entire game, not to mention that it is a perfect storm of color palettes, mixing red, green, and gray very well. However, despite the fact that this area is, in my opinion, really, really good, it is still overshadowed by other areas due to how short it is, and how similar to the Underhang it is, which, spoilers, is higher than it. Next up, an area with several good things going for it, Subterranean. On paper, Subterranean is a good area, a great area even. It has interesting navigation, fantastic visuals, great exploration, with the addition of several unique sub-areas such as the Scav Merchant and the Albino Leviathan Lake. You also have great reasons to be there, as it connects to several areas across the map. So what on earth makes you place this area outside of A tier? Well, this area is what I believe to be the first and maybe only example on the entire list of a region that I dislike almost exclusively for its difficulty. You see that? Across the horizon? The absolute Mongolian horde of creatures coming to devour your fucking ass? Yeah, this area has some of the most ridiculous creature spawns in the entire game. Not just in Hunter, too. Every difficulty. However, despite my opinions on the difficulty of this region, I do think that it serves a purpose as a sort of last hurrah to the more traditional Rain World gameplay with this sort of difficulty that you'd expect for such an area. It greatly surpasses Filtration in that aspect. My main issue is less the actual difficulty of it and more the type of difficulty. We'll see better examples of hard areas later, but Subterranean just kind of puts you in a flat room with a bunch of creatures in it and tells you to seethe, which is not particularly thrilling area design and doesn't make for a lot of fun. Now the final region of B tier is garbage wastes. Now before a few changes, garbage waste was initially going to be an A tier, but after a certain couple runs, I changed that opinion. Garbage waste is like that one uncle you have at Christmas parties. Sometimes he's really great and you can just talk to him for hours, and sometimes he's drunk and just horrible to be around. Sometimes, in garbage waste, you get a fun romp with inventive encounters with scavs and interesting creature placement, filled with a little bit of water puzzles too. And sometimes, you get speared on sight constantly and die to the leeches and Brother Longlegs. It's a mixed bag. But besides the fact that this area is built around scavengers, the masters of inconsistency, if you avoid them, you'll usually find yourself having a nice time in this area. Doesn't mean I'll forgive the fucking Brother Longlegs, though. Why? Alright. We're nearing the top. We're almost done. A tier. What incredibly interesting area will cap off this hallowed tier, only surpassed by one other letter? I wonder. It has to be unique and interesting to talk about. What area could possibly be this interesting? Well, it's Outskirts. I use the drunk uncle metaphor for garbage waste, so I'll use a different Christmas party metaphor for Outskirts. Outskirts is like that really old grandma that you see in the corner who runs the party. Everybody in the party loves her, but she's getting a little bit senile, so every time you have a conversation with her, it's pleasant, but you swear it always goes the exact same way. You can't really hold a conversation for too long, and there's not much substance. It's pleasant, and you love her because you've known her for so long. That's Outskirts. Outskirts is the first area that you ever see in the entire game. And it's very good. Solid platforming, fair creature spawns, solid lukewarm vibes as soon as Unseen Land stops playing, but I swear, the last time that I spent more than 3 cycles in Outskirts was when I was trying to beat the game without standing and literally couldn't get into Industrial. Video coming out soon, by the way. Despite this, the area is fun. You can spend time here, you just don't have a reason to. And that's the main issue. Next up, drainage systems. A slightly controversial pick, aside from a few stinky rooms. I personally really like drainage systems. Now, I will admit, everybody had that innate experience when starting Rain World where you enter an area and it kicks your fucking ass. Drainage system was that area for me. It almost made me quit the game, but I came back. And now, I love the area. It's fucking difficult, it's full of water puzzles and sometimes really unfair creature spawns, but the thing is, it does it well. This isn't just Subterranean, where the creatures are put on a flat plane and you have to deal with all of them. This area is a well thought out labyrinth of tunnels and pipes, where each room is its own little puzzle that takes effort to navigate, or else you're gonna drown. I like that a lot. Now, I'm not gonna mention the room, or the cum tunnel, or any of the other stinkers that really drag the area down. This is a bias pick. I just really like the toilet area, and it's a nice cap to the run before going down to filtration systems. Next up, and capping out A tier is Underhang, which I am separating from the leg and wall because that makes it more interesting. The Underhang is a very good area, I will admit. It's probably one of the most memorable regions in the entire game, especially considering that I never fucking get to go to it. That's the Underhang's main issue, is that there's no reason to go to the Underhang. To clarify, the only way to actually get into the Underhang is from the leg, which requires going through Lower Shaded, and you've heard my opinions on that, as well as Memory Crypts. Now, you could also go in through the wall, which is a fully impossible jump without a grapple worm, a creature that only spawns in the leg and the Underhang, which is just fantastic. So, if you make the downright Herculean trek to get to Underhang, what absolutely divine reward are you blessed with? Where does this area lead to? What does it give you? 5 fucking pebbles. So in terms of goals, this area scores a fat 0. Besides that though, it's a pretty damn good area. The vibe is strong, the lore is good, and the area has some of the most satisfying parkour in the entire game. This is primarily because this is the only area where grapple worms are completely 100% intended to be used. They're used in leg and it makes it fun, but they're not required. And grapple worms, fuck. Put it all together and you get an area with great platforming, pretty solid area layout, and incredible atmosphere that you will never go through twice. S tier. The golden gods of the tier list. Every other tier looks up with jealousy and admiration alike at these 3 areas. The first of which, in this pantheon of titans, is Chimney Canopy. Now, I love Chimney Canopy, if you couldn't tell by its placement. I consider it in the general trio of early game factory levels with Industrial and Outskirts. I think it's the middle of the pack. That doesn't mean that it's bad. On the contrary, I love Chimney Canopy. It has great platforming, lots of ways to traverse it, and a nice spice of mid-game difficulty before going up to the Wall or Sky Islands, which are both properly hard mid-late game areas, even though I fucking hate one of them. There's a reason I go to Chimney every run, and it's not exclusively because Shaded Citadel makes me want to pry my fucking eyes out. Chimney's difficulty is really well thought out, similar to Drainage, but without those shitty obnoxious rooms that drags the whole party down. It even has a nice echo to it. Get it? Get it? Yeah, but it's Chimney Canopy. It's one of the only areas that uses vultures really well. There's not much to say about Chimney. It's just a really good area. I just really like Chimney Canopy. Next up, and the area that will spoil the #1 spot, is Industrial Complex. I was very tempted to put Industrial at the top, but one thing brought it down, being that it's just another fucking factory level. Besides that, this area does everything great. It has perfect creature spawns for its spot in the game, the navigation is fun, it connects to every single damn mid-game region, it does so well in transferring the game from early to mid-game, it's kind of scary. Not to mention, the area is just perfectly sized. You're not going to get lost here until the rain comes like you might with some shittier designed regions. These shelters are well placed, the creature spawns are fantastic, the platforming is both reliable, fun, and challenging simultaneously, and just has enough incentives for you to explore to be worthwhile to do so. It is a very good area that other areas should take an example from, but it's kind of stale, no? Second place? Come on, you could have fixed this. A little color, a little life. There's nothing here, it's just slightly darker outskirts. Hell, it's the middle point. So let's move on to something a little bit more interesting. And at #1, the best area in Rain World, or at least my favorite, is the Wall. I'm not going to pretend that my opinion is fact like I usually do. I know that people dislike this area. It's toughy. So let me change your mind. The Wall is the final good challenge before meeting 5 Pebbles, and it treats it as such. This area is, in my opinion, more climactic than the Depths, more difficult than Chimney Canopy, and more interesting than Underhang. Starting from the bottom of the area, you may notice that this area is pretty damn bright. And you're still under the threat of rain, and there are a lot of creatures here. White lizards and dropwigs are abundant in this lower part, meaning that you have to watch for an ambush as you climb the unique pipe structures, and stay wary of the long fall down. By the time you reach the major obstacle of this area, you've already grazed death at least once on average. The main obstacle of the Wall is the large bulb in the middle of it, filled with orange lizards in tight corridors to one another. This area is tough, but you're rewarded afterwards by the first example of a complete removal of rain. It just stops being a threat. You're above the clouds, and you can see in the distance structures just like this one poking above them as well. Now you're not home free yet, as the bright corridors are now home to more deadly assaults from white lizards, and this one incredibly rude pole plant. The Wall up to this point has been a brutal climb that shows you the fruits of your labor more with every passing room. It's rewarding you for succeeding in a visual way. As you reach the final chamber of the Wall, you get my 2 favorite rooms in the game. This one, and this one, both showing the distant iterators still working on, and the ancient city now completely devoid of life. I love this. Not only is this area always a joy to go through, it's a challenge that feels fair, keeps giving, and contains 2 of my favorite moments in the entire game, almost back to back. I will admit, even up here, there's still a little bit of dog shit smeared on the walls. This jump that requires a grapple worm or 2 spears, stinky and rude, video cult. Rude, I tell you. It is not a hard jump, it's just a little bit mean, and it really doesn't need to be there. But anyways, that's my region tier list. As always, as I said, my opinion is incurably fact, and any dissenters will be burned at the stake in the comments section. I'm just kidding. Please do tell me your personal tier lists, or if you disagree with any of my statements here. At worst, it helps the video. At best, it gives me some stuff to chew on, and could even make me change my mind. Thank you all for watching, hit the validation buttons, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.